The Nigerian Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, has lamented the extreme shortage of security personnel, inadequate funding, and their effect on the security situation in the country. The Army Chief stated that it is unrealistic to secure over 200 million Nigerians with just 2 million security agents, out of whom a little over 100,000 are active soldiers of the Nigerian Army, without any reserved forces. Lagbaja stated this while speaking at the 2024 Distinguished Personality Lecture titled "The Roles and Contributions of the Nigerian Army to National Development," jointly organized by the Center for Peace and Strategic Studies, University of Ilorin, and the Martin Luther Agwai International Leadership and Peacekeeping Center, JAGI. The event was organized on Monday in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, to mark the United Nations International Day of Peace. The Chief of Army Staff, who was represented by the Chief of Training of the Nigerian Army, Major General Sani Gambo Mohammed, lamented that the manpower of security personnel in the country is largely inadequate to secure a country of Nigeria's size. The Guardian newspaper reported that Lagbaja stressed, saying, "In a country with over 200 million people, it is unrealistic for security agencies totaling around 2 million, including an army of just over 100,000 active personnel, without a reserve force to secure the entire population. The significant gap in resources is being exploited by criminal elements. To address this issue, it is crucial to invest in expanding and strengthening security forces, ensuring they have adequate personnel and resources." Also, according to Lagbaja, inadequate funding affects the level of equipment held by the armed forces of Nigeria, hence having direct impact on the performance of the military. Describing national development and national security as costly, the Chief of Army Staff said, "The entire armed forces of Nigeria had a budget of about $2.8 billion in 2023, with an additional supplementary budget of about $1 billion. However, not all the budgetary provisions were eventually released," he said. Although funding the armed forces of Nigeria as a whole has been improving yearly since 2017, unfortunately, the downturn in the economic performance of the country has eroded the value of what is actually released. The inadequacy in funding is affecting the equipment holding of the armed forces of Nigeria, which has a direct impact on performance. The Nigerian Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, expresses concerns over the severe shortage of security personnel and insufficient funding, which have significant repercussions for the country's security landscape. He emphasized that it is unrealistic to expect that Nigeria, as a nation of over 200 million people, can be adequately secured by only 2 million security agents, of which just over 100,000 are active soldiers in the Nigerian Army with no reserve force. This was highlighted during the 2024 Distinguished Personality Lecture titled "The Roles and Contribution of the Nigerian Army to National Development," co-organized by the Center for Peace and Strategic Studies at the University of Ilorin and the Martin Luther Agwai International Leadership and Peacekeeping Center, JAGI. The event took place in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, on the United Nations International Day of Peace. Lagbaja, represented by Major General Sani Gambo Mohammed, the Chief of Training of the Nigerian Army, lamented that the manpower within the security sector is far from adequate to address Nigeria's security challenges. With over 200 million citizens and a security forces comprising roughly 2 million agents, the existing gap is being exploited by criminal elements. Lagbaja stressed the need for urgent investment in expanding and strengthening security forces, ensuring they have sufficient personnel, resources, and modern equipment to counter security threats effectively. The issue of inadequate funding was another major concern for the Chief of Army Staff. He pointed out that despite efforts to improve funding for the Armed Forces of Nigeria (AFN) since 2017, the economic downturn has diminished in the value of allocated resources. In 2023, the Armed Forces of Nigeria had a budget of about $2.8 billion, with an additional supplementary budget of around $1 billion. However, not all of these budgetary allocations were disbursed, further exacerbating the situation. Lieutenant General Lagbaja made it clear that national development and security are costly endeavors, and the lack of sufficient funding directly impaired the military performance. The inadequate funding has hindered the military's ability to maintain sufficient levels of equipment, further compromising the Armed Forces of Nigeria's capacity to effectively carry out its duty. While the budget for the Armed Forces of Nigeria has seen incremental improvements in recent years, the ongoing economic difficulties in Nigeria have eroded the true value of funds that are actually released to the military. The Army Chief's remarks underscores a broader issue: the importance of sustained and increased financial support for the country's security agencies to ensure that they can adequately fulfill their roles in protecting the population. He highlighted that addressing these gaps is crucial not only for maintaining internal security, but also for contributing to Nigeria's overall development. In this news report, the Nigerian Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tariud Lagbaja, argued that the current security personnel in Nigeria, around 2 million, including about 100,000 active soldiers in the Nigerian Army, is insufficient to secure a population of over 200 million people. The lack of sufficient personnel is being taken advantage by criminal elements in the country, which worsens the security situation. Lagbaja mentioned that although funding for the Armed Forces of Nigeria has been increasing since 2017, economic challenges and inflation have eroded the value of these funds. This has negatively affected the military access to essential equipment, limiting their effectiveness. The Army Chief emphasized that security is an integral part of national development, but it is costly to maintain. The current security budget is inadequate to meet the needs of the Nigerian Armed Forces. To address the growing insecurity, the Chief of Army Staff called for increased investment in expanding and strengthening the security forces and ensuring they are equipped with adequate personnel and resources. The news report brings into focus the severe challenges Nigeria faces in terms of national security, particularly the mismatch between its large population and the relatively small size of its security forces. Lieutenant General Lagbaja's argument that 2 million security agents are insufficient for 200 million people points to a critical problem in Nigerian security architecture. The numbers alone suggest that each security officer is responsible for 100 citizens, an unrealistic ratio in a country with numerous security threats, including insurgency, banditry, kidnappings, and communal conflicts. From a critical standpoint, the lack of a reserved force in the Nigerian army exacerbates this problem. In many countries, reserve forces provide critical support during crises, allowing active duty soldiers to focus on specialized operations. Nigeria's failure to establish or properly maintain such a reserve force reduces the military flexibility and capacity to respond to multiple threats. The fact that criminal elements are exploiting this manpower gap suggests that Nigeria's security situation could worsen if these challenges is not addressed. Criminals such as bandits and insurgents thrive in areas where state security is weak or absent. This creates a vicious cycle where insecurity grows under police region, leading to further destabilization of the country. This analysis raises questions about the allocation and deployment of current security personnel. Are they concentrated in certain regions while other areas remain vulnerable? And is there sufficient intelligence gathering and coordination to make up for the manpower shortage? While Nigeria's military funding has been improving, the Chief of Army Staff highlights the practical limitation of this improvement. The combination of budget shortfall and the economic downturn means that even the money allocated to the security is not always fully released or sufficient. This points to broader economic challenges Nigeria is facing, which further limit its ability to improve its security sector. A deeper analysis shows that underfunding the military affects not just personnel recruitment, but also training, equipment procurement, and operational readiness. In modern warfare, where technology plays a crucial role, having outdated or insufficient equipment can put soldiers at a severe disadvantage. The inability to procure modern equipment could also limit the military's ability to counter advanced threats like terrorism and insurgency. Lieutenant General Lagbaja correctly connects national security to national development. A nation cannot achieve sustained development if its citizens live in constant fear or instability. For example, the ongoing insurgency in Nigeria's northeastern region has caused mass displacement, disrupted education, and destroyed infrastructure. These setbacks are not just immediate losses, they have long-term consequences on the economic and social fabric of the country. However, the Chief of Army Staff argument that securing the nation is costly raises a crucial question. How can Nigeria optimize its spending on security while ensuring development? Is there a way to reform the military and security agencies to make them more efficient with the available resources? The call for greater investment in the security forces is a key takeaway from Lagbaja's statements. But beyond simply increasing the budget, it is essential to consider how the funds are managed and spent. Effective investments should focus not just on expanding the numbers of personnel, but also on improving training, logistics, intelligence, and technology. Additionally, tackling the root causes of insecurity, such as poverty, unemployment, and ethnic conflicts, may help reduce the burden on the security forces in the long term. The report clearly identifies the critical issues facing Nigeria's security, manpower shortage, and inadequate funding. This transparency in acknowledging the challenges is important for creating a public dialogue on national security reform. By connecting security with national development, the Chief of Army Staff highlights the broader implications of insecurity in the nation's progress, making this more than just a military issue, but a national concern. While the report identifies problems, it doesn't delve into specific actionable solutions beyond calling for more investment. How exactly should Nigeria go about recruiting more personnel, and how can the government ensure better resource allocation without wasting funds on corruption? The report seems to focus primarily on increasing the number of security agents, but it lacks discussion on alternative approach such as community policing, technology-driven security measures, or diplomatic efforts to resolve underlying conflicts. Without significant changes to the current security structure, Nigeria risks further deterioration in public safety. The increasing reliance on military forces may not be sustainable in the long run, particularly if the economy continues to struggle. The issue raised by Lagbaja also put pressure on the Nigerian government to find innovative solutions to insecurity. Failure to do so could undermine public confidence in leadership and worsen the already volatile political climate. On the positive side, recognizing these challenges presents an opportunity for structural reform. With the right investment, Nigeria could improve not just the size of its military, but also its strategic capability. Imagine trying to take care of 100 people all by yourself. That is really hard, right? That is what Nigerian soldiers are trying to do. They don't have enough helper to help everyone safe, and that makes it easy for bad guys to cause trouble. To fix this, the soldiers need more friends to help and better tools to stop the bad guys. But there is not enough money to get everything they need, which makes their job even harder. In the end, if we want everyone to be safe and happy, we have to help the soldiers by giving them more friends and better equipment to do their job. But we also have to make sure we are using the money wisely. This is the end of our news updates. I will see you again in my next video.